Now, you're in a very strong position, having all this information about companies, international companies, companies all around the world, including in developing countries. Do you have other organizations come to you seeking information about other corporations, governments, for example?
Yes, we talk to other governments also, and we store, since we have economists in a lot of countries, and we store and update our assessments all the time. So we look at the political risk in a country, we look at the sector risk of a specific sector, either on a global level or a sector in a country, and we look at the business climate. And all this information is highly appreciated by other parties with whom we share this information on a regular basis.
Right. So, for example, in the world as we see it today, with a number of difficult areas and trouble spots, you would obviously take a very involved view of those, because of their effect on trade both ways.
Indeed, yes.
And so do you actually grade governments then?
We grade the political risk, and the government risk is only a small parameter within this. So the political risk means in which situation is this country, is information accessible on companies. So we look at a country's risk more from the business climate side, but incorporate to a small extent also the political situations of the government.
Right. Now, am I right in thinking you've upgraded your view of certain countries recently? I believe Russia was one of them.
Right. Russia is one of these countries. And in the course of the last, I would say, 18 months, we upgraded a lot of countries. A lot of them are back on pre-crisis level. And we upgraded Russia. We did this with Turkey as well. So there are a couple of countries that have recently been upgraded.
Right.
Brazil as well.
Yeah. So let's go back to our mythical copper producer in Nigeria. They've reached the stage where they have enough product, a guaranteed supply. Many villages are making lots of wonderful material, and they've now decided that they're going to trade. They're going to export, because they've been told there's a probable market out there in Europe for these products. So they don't know that you exist. So sitting in the manager's office, what are his or her options at that stage?
Nowadays, we personally don't have a presence in Nigeria, so normally you would rather look on the internet, as we all research information nowadays. Go on LinkedIn, you will find us, Facebook, and on the internet you will find risk or trade credit protection, and that's the keyword where you will find us and our competitors.
Right. Well, are there competitors, and is government financing a competitor, and can that be effective, or is that more risky, do you think?
Indeed, there are three options to protect trade receivables. There's the ECAs, like the Exim Bank here in the US, who could very safely support export to other countries. There is also the letter of credit that you have as an option, which you could use if you have a new buyer. The inherent risk of a letter of credit, and I have to put it in a very simple situation. You are a seller, you want to expand business, you finally found a new buyer, and you almost close the contract, and then you say, well, but actually I don't trust you. Would you mind opening up a letter of credit for this deal? And would you mind if these funds, if you have to pay for that? I think that's a little bit difficult to do new business. So now we talk about credit insurance. Credit insurance is very safe. Credit insurance happens behind the scenes. The buyer doesn't even know that our seller in Nigeria insures these receivables.
Right, that's a very important point indeed.
So the business relationship between these two parties is not impacted at all, but it's protected and nobody can see that. So I think from a standpoint of how to build a new relationship, that's probably the most smoothest way to do business.
Yeah, and based on trust.
Based on trust.
Which trade should be anyway. And presumably, well, letters of credit or maybe even government financing, that would be more public, wouldn't it?
Right. Both is more public, yes, indeed.
Well, what would you say is the biggest risk for people watching this program and thinking of expanding and trading? What are the things that they should be very careful about and watch for in a relationship with a customer?
They need to know in which economic environment this customer is doing his business. So they need to know more about the country of the buyer. They need to know more about the legal situation. How can I collect money? What are the normal ways of doing business in that country? Is a credit term of 90 days too long in this country, or is it usual? So to what extent can I extend credit? And then, of course, there's always the language barrier. It's very important that if you speak about trust you can build up mainly if you can really have a good dialogue. So all this makes business more difficult between different countries than if you do business in the US with a US buyer.
Right. And do you constantly monitor the state of various governments in developing nations particularly, or do you monitor all governments really?
We monitor all economies worldwide, and we monitor 156 countries worldwide, so it's a pretty good coverage. And also we look into these countries where we think right now there is not enough trade going on, so we also look at those countries.
So how many people does COFACE have? This is a vast operation.
It's a huge company worldwide. We have about 5,000 people worldwide.
In how many countries?
In almost 100 countries.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's some operation.
Yeah, indeed. And as you can see, you don't only need people who sell our products. You have to have a big staff on the operation side who really do the risk assessment, who really take a decision of to which amount you can extend a credit. Like, is a receivable of 500,000, can this be covered by us or not? Or should our seller in Nigeria rather look for a smaller outstanding of 200,000? So for this you need to have very qualified people, and you need a lot of people also.
So are you optimistic about the future? Do you see globalization and international trade continuing to grow and develop?
Of course, if you start with free trade from scratch, you see, of course, how much it brings to people in the world. So, of course, trade and free trade is a trigger of supporting people and of growing and bringing wealth and bringing a good life in various countries.
Well, Kerstin Braun, Executive Vice President of COFACE North America, thank you very much for being with us. It's been very, very illuminating.
Thank you.
You very much.
Thank you.
I'm Alan Capper, South News.